Namaste. Welcome to your practice. Today's class is Yoga for the Modern Body. This is yoga for those of us, like me, who spend a lot of their time rounded forward because everything that we do is right here in front of us. So the hips are flexed, the spine is flexed, the chin is down, the arms are rolled forward a little bit. And that's not a bad thing, but today we're going to introduce a little bit more movement variety, a little bit of core and hip stability, and then we're going to start to open up a little bit through the shoulders, through the front of the chest, through the front of the body, which might feel like it needs it. This is the first of a two-part series. So today we're going to be a little bit more low-key. We're going to stay low to the ground, literally. And then the second part of the series will come up and do a little bit more of a physical, vigorous practice. Let's get started lying down. Now, when you come to lie down, you might feel like it feels best for you to keep your knees bent, and that's totally fine. Please feel free to do that if it feels best for you. If your body's comfortable straightening the legs, then you can do that. And then just take a moment, if you can, to register the feeling of the back of the body now supported by the earth, and the front of the body feeling like it's a little bit more open here. When I say open, I mean that we're not rolled forward, we're not curled forward, we're a little bit more neutral with the spine and the shape of the legs and the shoulders and the neck. And feel what that's like in your body. Sometimes it can feel really good just to lie down. Take a moment or two, if you like, to roll your head side to side. And notice if there's any feeling in your body of starting to settle in a little bit. Now, for just another moment or two, we'll rest and breathe here. You see if you can feel how the belly inflates on the inhale and draws back in on the exhale. So we want to feel not just a lift through the belly, but also a widening out to the sides so the breath is wide as we inhale and draws back toward the midline on the exhale. And at the same time, the breath also lifts, but there's also a sense that we're breathing into the lower back. So that as you inhale, we can feel that we're breathing 360 degrees, as though there were an inner tube around our low waist, and we're inflating it as we breathe in. And as you breathe out, it's all drawing back in towards center. Now, it's okay if you feel like I can't quite get that today. We're just looking and exploring and noticing. Let's take one more breath here. And then before we start moving a little bit more, if you'd like to set an intention for your practice, for this time that you've carved out for yourself in your day, this time that's just for you, what intention will you set? How do you want to work today? And then we'll begin to add a little bit more movement to our practice. Let's step the feet in. If the knees were straight, now they're bent. And then we'll lift the feet away from the floor so that the knees are over the hips. Take your hands and press them lightly into the thighs, and the thighs press back into the hands. So we feel a little bit of an awakening through the core. Check in with your neck and see if you could not do this work with your neck. We'll do some neck work later, but not yet. So your neck is really neutral. And what I'm feeling in my body right now is an activation of my core between my hips and my ribs. I really am feeling that come online. I also feel my legs doing a little bit of work. Let's take one more breath here. And then lower the feet right back down to the floor. Pause and breathe. We'll do that again. We're just waking up the core muscles. Invite the knees in toward you. Press the hands into the thighs into the hands. Wake up a little bit through the abdominal muscles, but also through the muscles of the back and the muscles of the hips. One more breath here, pressing hands into thighs, thighs into hands. And then we'll set the feet right back down. Pause here, see if you can let the belly soften again. We want to be able to engage, but we also want to be able to soften when we're able. Next, we're waking up a little bit more through the back of the hip. So as you stay here, the knees are going to be bent. See if you can find again that feeling of lightly engaging the abdominal muscles, as though you were pressing the hands into the thighs and the thighs into the hands. So there's just a light bracing there. Now keep that brace as you squeeze the back of the hips toward the ceiling. I'm going to ask you to try to keep your spine neutral for today. So rather than lifting up as high as you can, see if you can keep that feeling of a light brace through the abdominal area, just like when we were pressing the hands into the thighs. And only lift as high as you can from the back of the hip, so getting a little bit of a squeeze. Now, if this causes you any back discomfort, then I'm going to ask you to drop back down to where it feels good, or even skip this one completely today. Let's take one more breath here, and then set the hips right back down on the floor. Now we'll take the arms out to a T, lift the feet away from the floor, and we're going to drop the knees toward the right as we look over the left shoulder, not letting the knees come all the way down, they're hovering. And then I look to my right as the knees drop to the left. So again, knees not coming all the way down, just hovering as far as I can comfortably control the movement. We'll continue this way, knees go one way, gaze goes another. Knees to the left, gaze to the right. And as you go back and forth, feel how the movement is controlled from the center. Again, this part of the practice, we're just waking up the muscles of the center of the body before we start to get more into mobility. The next time that your knees drop over to your left, that'll be the last for now. We'll come back through to center, lower the feet to the floor, and then hug the knees toward the chest if that feels good. Tuck the chin a little bit, and let's rock a little side to side. If you want to make this a little bigger, you could lift the head, keep the chin tucked, and rock left and right here. And then we'll rock all the way over to one side or another, and come up to a seat. All right, so let's start to add a little bit more of a stretch component into our practice. So if possible, I'd like you to be near a wall, one arm distance away. So I know it's a little hard to see with the camera angle, but I have my hand pressing into the wall, my arm is straight, and then my hips are just on the floor right under the shoulders. If you find that you tend to get a little slouchy and your back gets tired after you're sitting on the floor for a while, go ahead and give yourself a little lift. I'm sitting on a blanket for this part of the class. It doesn't have to be a yoga blanket, you could sit on anything at all. If it's possible, have your left ankle in front of your right knee and your right foot under the left ankle. So I've crossed my legs here. Or if that's not possible, have your left leg bent and your right leg straight, or have your legs in literally any position at all that feels good to you. All right? So pause for a moment here. I'm going to play with a little movement with the neck now, as promised. We'll begin by tucking the chin slightly and drawing back. Imagine that you're trying to make a double chin, like you would never do if there were a camera pointed at you, but you're pulling back here. Feel the muscles around the neck working. Then we're going to look over the left shoulder as though there was something really interesting over there. And then take your eyes across the horizon to your right. Keep the rest of your body really quiet and still for now. So we're just turning the head from side to side, and you're only going as far as you can without pain. Let your eyes lead the way. This is so important, especially if you've been spending a lot of time looking at a screen or doing really close-up work. Let your eyes lead the way. Now, we'll come back through to neutral, tuck the chin again, get back into that original position, and then drop your chin as though you were looking down at your shirt. And then we'll lift the gaze to the ceiling as though you were looking up as high as you can. We'll do that a few more times, looking down and looking up. I know these movements might feel really simple, but that's on purpose. We're trying to ask our body now to move in a way that maybe it hasn't done in a little while. We'll come back through to neutral here, and just one more thing. Drop your ear to one shoulder, back to center, ear to the other shoulder. It doesn't matter how far you go. I want you to see if you can keep your shoulder blades dropping down the back here. Ear to shoulder, back to center, ear to shoulder. Good. Then we come back to neutral. You can move around a little bit here if you want to. If you need to, especially, please move. And then we'll add a little bit more. Take your arms, let's reach them overhead here, and draw them back through the center of the heart. If you want to put breath together in a pattern here, you can. You might play with an inhale to lift the arms, and an exhale to bring the hands through heart center, but you could also try the other way. Exhale out as the arms come up. Inhale as the hands come in. So there's no magic way to do this, we're just playing. The next time that your hands come back through heart center, let's pause here. See how my wrists are pressing into one another, my palms are pressing into one another? Drop the hands as low as you can down your body while still maintaining the palms touching. And that might mean that you're up here, it might mean you're down here or even lower, that's okay. This is our passive range of motion for wrist extension. I'm going to ask you to try to hold this angle right here as you pull your hands apart. So you should feel some muscles working here in the forearm and in the back of the hand. And then we bring the hands back together. Let's do that a few times. Think about peeling the fingers away first and then taking the hands apart and then bring them back together. Let's do that 2 more times. Hands come apart, feel the muscles working. Hands come back together. 1 more time, hands come apart and hands come back together. Good, now we'll keep the hands together as you turn the fingers toward, I was going to say toward me, but away from your chest, and then down. Check in with your shoulders, make sure they're not lifting up toward the ears. Keep the shoulders down and keep the palms together. We're just looking for whatever stretch we find here. And then we'll bring the fingers back up and start to point them toward the chest. Here the shoulders are probably going to want to lift up again, so check in with them and see if you can keep them down. Good, and then we'll bring the hands back to center. Go ahead and shake out the wrists for a moment. If anything feels like it's too much or not right for you, or you go tingly or numb throughout this class, please back off. Now we're going to work a little bit into the shoulder, into the arm, into the chest. Reach the arms overhead. Turn yourself to your left and bring your left hand to the wall behind you. Now you may find that this is too intense right away. It's okay to just have the fingers on the wall. And if you feel like, oh, this is too much, I can't quite get there, turn your hips toward the wall so it's less of a twist. Now, if it's possible for you, I'm just going to rearrange my hips a little bit here. If it's possible for you to push your whole hand gently into the wall, you can do that. And then check in with your shoulder blade. Make sure it's not lifting up towards your ear. Ask your shoulder blade to drop down your back as you gently twist toward the wall. So we're activating some of the strengthening, twisting muscles of our torso as we do this. There's a sense of lifting up and turning. But we may also be feeling a stretch across the front of the chest. As you come into your deepest, most comfortable twist here, now if it feels good, you might start to leave your hand on the wall, turn your gaze away from the wall, and see if you can find a little bit of an opening across the chest. So I've just untwisted a little bit through the upper spine so that I'm starting to get a little more pull, a gentle pull across the front of my shoulder here into the chest. Everybody's really different, and depending on what you do for a living, this may be so full of sensation that you need to really go lightly here. So please pay attention to your body. We'll take 1 more breath, breathing in and breathing out. And then let's come back around through to center. Go ahead and shake out the arm if it needs to be shaken, and see if one arm feels longer than another. Then we'll take the legs out in front of us, and let's take them a little bit wide this time. Start to lean forward a little bit here and let the belly move forward and the chest move forward. And then we'll lean back, rounding the shoulders, rounding the middle of the spine toward the wall behind you. So as you come forward, the belly and the chest moves forward. As you round back, the back of the heart and the belly button go backward. So we're just asking our body to move through flexion and extension here in the spine, just like a cat and cow movement. If you're sitting on a blanket, it may be easier if you slip off the blanket for this part. Now, let's start to add a little more movement. The next time you come forward, take your torso over to your right, curl backward, go to the left, bring the chest forward. So we'll continue around in this way, circling. And see if you can still hit those landmarks so that the spine is rounding backward when you go backward. The chest is arching forward when you move forward. And then we'll reverse going the other direction. Glide to the left, round back, glide to the right, lift the chest. If it's helpful for you to close your eyes at any point in your practice, of course you're welcome to, especially if you're trying to sort of focus or concentrate inward. It's also nice to keep the eyes open and let this be a practice of awareness as well, so that even as you're moving and feeling in your body, you're still connected to the experience that your body is having in the world around you. The next time that you find yourself coming back, let's pause here. Take the elbows into a cactus shape, and we're just playing lightly with the arms now. Squeeze the shoulder blades together behind you, like you're trying to pinch a credit card between your shoulder blades. And then bring the elbows together in front of you. Let's do that a few more times. Squeeze the shoulder blades together behind you. Bring the elbows together in front of you. 3 more times. See if you can stay really connected to the feeling of this in your body, really feeling how the shoulder blades pull apart when the elbows come forward. Really feeling how the shoulder blades squeeze together when the arms go back. Now, the next time that you bring your elbows forward, we're going to pause here. Make 2 fists, just light fists with the hands, and turn the fists to face you. Then, elbows stay together, and we're pulling the fists apart and together. Imagine there's a rubber band between the hands, so we pull apart and back together. We'll just do this 3 more times. Apart, together, apart, together. Just do the best that your body will with this movement. Apart and together. Whew, okay, things that are harder than they look, that's definitely one of them. From here, we're crossing right leg in front of the left, or you've got the other leg straight and the other leg bent, whichever way you didn't do the first time. So we'll work a little bit here. Go ahead to reach the arms up overhead again, find that big circle. And this time when you get overhead, interlace the fingers and see how it would feel to turn the palms up to the sky. For some of us, that's not going to be okay for the shoulders, and then I would ask you to keep your hands facing the same way, but just steeple the thumb and first finger and reach up. If it does feel okay to flip the palms toward the sky, you can do that here, find that stretch, and then wherever you are, it might feel good to lean a little bit left and right, get a little bit of sway. You could also do this practice in a chair if sitting on the floor is starting to get kind of old or uncomfortable for your body. Good. Let's come all the way back, and then bring the hands in front of you. Interlace the fingers, make a little fist. Watch as I start with my right elbow, it comes up, and I'm just letting a wave of energy ripple through the arms. Good, don't think too hard about this one. Good, and then we'll reverse. Start with your left elbow up. Good. And let that go. Now we'll take the hands behind the head. You can interlace the hands behind the head, or if that isn't feeling great for your body, just take your hands and lightly rest them on the back of the skull. Gently press the hands into the head, and then press your head back into your hands. As you do this, feel the muscles around the neck working. There should be no strain with this. It doesn't matter if the elbows are forward or out to the side, be wherever you need to. And just gently press head into hands, hand into head. We'll stay here for another breath or two. And then let that go. All right, turn your head a little bit, move it around. And now we're moving into the shoulder blades. Lift the shoulder blades up, squeeze them together, bring them down your back 2 more times. Apart, up, together, and down. 1 more, apart, up, together, and down. Let's reverse that. Together and up, apart, down, together, up, apart, and down. 1 more time. Together, up, apart, down. All right, here we go. Arms overhead. Let's get that twist. Turn to your right. Bring your right hand to the wall behind you. Now, as you do this, remember, you may need to adjust. You may need to turn your hips toward the wall. So that would look like this. Or your hand could be a little further away. It doesn't need to be right behind you. You don't need to press the whole palm into the wall if that's not comfortable. You may feel a big stretch through the hand, the forearm, the bicep, the shoulder. You may have everything you need here. See if you can still feel that your hips are on the floor. You still have a sense of liftedness, a sense of integration. So you feel your body pulling in and lifting up. And then if you feel like you want to add a little more tension, a little more of a stretch through the front of the shoulder, you can look over the opposite shoulder or even start to untwist until you feel like, oh, there's where I want it to be. Play with where you feel like the stretch is most appropriate or relevant to you. Last breath or two here. You should still be able to breathe as you're doing these. So if anything feels so intense that you have to hold your breath, make it a little bit easier for today, and over time the experience will change. Good, and then let's unwind. Come all the way back through to center. Again, I have the experience of this arm feeling longer, so you may have that too. And then we'll just shake that out a little bit. All right, let's move to a tabletop position. We spent quite a bit of time seated, so let's get to hands and knees here and do a little bit more work. So we've done some cat and cow work already, but let's do it one more time here. Tilt your pelvis, let your belly come down, let the chest move forward, and then tuck and round the spine. Let's just do that 2 more times. If it feels like it's too much to have your shoulders right over your wrists like I'm showing here, you can always take it a little further back. Let's do 1 more cat and cow. And then we'll step the right foot forward to the front of the mat. If it doesn't get where you want it to go easily, you just pick it up and put it where you want it. Then we'll come up to the top of the right thigh here. Now for today, there are lots of ways to do lunges, but for today I'm going to ask you to keep your left hip over your left knee and the right knee over the right foot, more or less. And then let's do a little activation here. Squeeze the back of the hips. So give your left butt especially a good squeeze, and then imagine that you're pulling up through the front of the hips. For today, let's reach the hands back behind us. You can interlace the hands, or you could take the hands to the hips if that feels better, or you could clasp opposite elbows. We're going to keep the shoulders pulling back a little bit for today. From here, notice if your chin wants to duck down. See if you can look forward and then tuck the chin and slide it back. Feel your shoulder blades pull together and a little bit down, and see if you can find a sense of broadening or widening across the front of the chest. Let's take 2 more breaths here. Find your best experience that you can for yourself in this pose. Good. And we'll let the hands unravel. Bring the hands back down to the floor. Step the right knee back to the left. And let's bring the left foot forward here. Same thing on the second side. And remember, it might take you a few steps to kind of get the leg where you want it. No big deal. I've got my left knee over my left ankle, my left shoulder over my left hip, my right hip over my right knee. I like my back toes tucked under here for a little more control over the shape, but you can have the foot flat too. It doesn't matter, whatever feels best for you. Now, if it felt really good to have the hands behind you, you could do that again here. Or it might feel good to try something different. You might take the arms wide, which is what I'm going to do, and then squeeze the shoulder blades together and reach the backs of the arms back. Now, I'm not going really far with this, right? I don't have a tremendous range of motion here, but that's not what it's about. This is an active pose. I'm squeezing the shoulder blades together and down and reaching. As I do that, I'm still squeezing the back of the hips, so especially my right glutes, my right booty is squeezing hard, and I'm lifting through the front of the hips so that I get a little more sensation of pulling up through the front of the right thigh, a little more stretch. Last breath here, I'm checking to see, is my chin dropping forward or can I have it a little bit lifted so that I'm looking in the same direction that my heart is facing. And then hands release. Hands back down to the floor, and step back to tabletop, and then walk the knees back, and we're coming all the way down to the floor, face down here for moving toward the last part of our practice. Rest your forehead on top of the back of your left hand. The right hand is underneath, so it's a stack. I've got right palm, left palm, forehead. And now see if you can find your abdominal muscles and give a little lift, like you're trying to lift your belly away from the floor, like the floor is going to tickle you and you're lifting up. And there's a little squeeze through the back of the hips. Keep that as you lift your forehead and left arm up. So I'm gluing the back of my left hand to my forehead, and then I'm setting down. I'm switching. My right hand and right elbow come up and back down. So I know that might have been confusing. We're going to go through it a few times. Left hand on top. Glue the back of your left hand to your forehead as you lift your head, hand, and elbow. And back down. And switch right hand, forehead, and right elbow. Lift up. Now as you do this, keep switching back and forth. See if you can keep that little squeeze through the back of the hip, that little engagement through the abdominal muscles. We're keeping the lower back from doing too much here and asking this to be a movement of the upper back. Let's do one more time with the left hand and then with the right hand. Good. Set that down. Come onto your elbows for Sphinx pose and pause for a moment here. Go ahead and let your belly soften and your head hang toward the floor. You can shake your head if you like. In a moment, we're going to do one more little back bend. Lower yourself back down to the floor. Hands are on either side of your neck, under your shoulders. Tuck your chin, lift the back of the head first, so I'm still looking down. Now see how high you can lift the back of the head, still looking down, without using the hands. And then see if you can use the muscles of your upper back to lift your torso with minimal help from the hands. So I'm asking my upper back to do quite a bit of the work here. Coming into your cobra pose, and then at the end you can use your arms just as much as you want to. And if it feels like it's too much for your lower back, you can lower down again. Or you can work on squeezing the back of the hip and lifting up through the low belly to create a little bit more of a neutral lower back. If that feels like I don't know how to do that, come down until it feels better. Let's take one more breath here in Cobra, and then we'll lower slowly, slowly, all the way back down to the floor. You can bring the hands back into that starting position under the forehead if you like, or just rest them wherever you like. If it feels good, you can bend the knees, heels come into the air. We're just going to do a little windshield wiper side to side. Good, and then let your legs lower back down to the floor. We have a few different options here. It's time to rest. If this is all that you have time for today, then we're going to turn over onto our back and take a moment or two in Shavasana. Otherwise, if you like, you can stop this one and continue with the second part of this practice, or you can move on with the rest of your day. So if you want to join me for a moment or two in Shavasana, we're not there for very long. You can roll over onto your back and come all the way down. And then settle in. Again, we're just here for a moment. But see if you can feel again the support that the earth has to offer you here. Feeling how your spine drops into neutral. Maybe if the legs are comfortable straightening, you can check it out and see how that feels now after the work we did here. Walk the shoulders down a little bit. And again, maybe turn the head side to side. Today you did a little work to strengthen. You did some work to mobilize and stretch. And through the whole thing, the challenge has always been to stay connected to, or to reconnect maybe, to the experience of being in your body today. Take a few breaths here. Maybe on the exhale, inviting any unneeded tension to drop away here. Now, if you have longer to stay, please feel free to rest a little bit longer. Otherwise, if you have just a half hour or you're going to move on to another practice from here, you could pull the knees in, start to rock a little side to side. And then we'll make our way back to a seat. Really great work today. Thank you so much for playing along. Let me know how it feels. And I'll look forward to practicing with you again soon. Please be well.